friends, welcome back to Chronically Overdressed. I know it's been a while since you have seen me. I've been incredibly busy with our move to Vienna and getting everything together. And honestly, I just needed some time to kind of decompress, and I'm starting to recombobulate now and getting all of my ideas and everything together. But I really wanted to do this video. I've been asked numerous times on how I cut my own horseshoe haircut. And I feel like I'm at a good point with cutting my hair now that I feel like I can actually show you and kind of talk you through it. So that's what we're gonna do today. I learned how to cut my hair back in 2020 or 2021 during the pandemic. And I had a Zoom call with my friend Destiny Cushing. If you recall, I did a video with her a little while back talking about how to actually talk to your hairdresser about getting a vintage haircut. So if you are interested in that, definitely go check that out. It's a great video, and there's a PDF in the description that helps you talk to your hairdresser. But if you're interested in learning how to cut your own hair, or at the very least just kind of maintaining that cut by doing regular trims, then hopefully this video will be helpful for you. Destiny was incredibly helpful to kind of walk me through and show me how to make that U-shaped cut. Honestly, the horseshoe haircut is a pretty simple haircut. I don't have any layers. My hair is just a simple cut. I do a little bit of a different piece in my fringe just because I do have a lot of hair and it gets pretty heavy, so I cut my fringe a little bit shorter, but you can adjust that to your own style however you want. So to begin, I really recommend getting yourself a good pair of shears. These are not terribly expensive. I believe I got mine on Amazon for probably less than $30. You can spend a lot, but you don't really need to spend a whole lot. But definitely don't just go grab out your kitchen shears or scissors out of your office. Get yourself a nice pair of shears that are specific for hair cutting. It's really going to make a big difference. They cut they're very sharp. They cut very nicely. Trust me, it'll be much, much better for you. And then I recommend having a few hair clips on hand. You can use duckbill clips. I like these. I have thick hair, so they really hold my hair and grip it very, very well. But duckbill clips work as well, or like claw clips, just something that you're gonna be able to separate your hair and keep it out of the way while you're working on those sections. So the way that Destiny taught me was to cut my hair dry, and it does make a difference for me than with my hair wet. But because I have naturally curly hair, I have to flat iron my hair, so I have to make sure that it's completely straight. But cutting your hair dry, I find it much easier than cutting your hair wet. But if you do want to cut it wet, that's fine. If you find that easier, I would just recommend having a spray bottle on hand just to, occasionally spritz your hair to make sure that it's still wet as you're cutting it. You don't want it to be drying because your hair is going to change quite a bit from being wet to dry, and you want to make sure that everything is staying even. So like I said, this is a pretty simple haircut. It is just a U shape or horseshoe shape in the back. The sides are a little bit tapered, and then I do a bit of a shorter fringe just on one section, just to kind of get some of that bulk off of that heavier side. You could absolutely have your hair cut by a professional and then use this as a way to maintain and just do simple trims until your next appointment. Or you could just use this as your hair cutting procedure. I have been cutting my hair now since I learned how to do it. I think I've only been to a hairstylist for a cut maybe 1 or 2 times. And ended up not being very happy with it, and I end up just keep going back and just doing it myself. For me, it's a long process because I do have to straighten my hair, but it's so much easier for me to just do it and know that I'm getting the right cut. And this cut is just absolutely perfect for vintage hairstyles. Now I'm going to show you how I actually cut my hair, and I'll give you tips and tricks along the way, and then I will wash and set it and style it, and you'll see the final outcome. Okay, I know it's a bit of a jump scare, but here is my hair when it is straight. So I wanted to show you what my hair looks like prior to the cut. This has been about 6 months since I cut my hair, but you can see how it tapers around in the front on that kind of larger side, and then a little bit more on, or a little bit less really, on the smaller side. And then in the back, you can still see the U shape, even though it's pretty shaggy and obviously needs a cut. To begin, it is important to section off your hair. You definitely want to make sure that the hair that you're not cutting is fully away so you don't get it mixed up. I like to go ahead and part my hair basically the way that I would normally do it. So I have a side part, and I like to keep that side part because I want to keep the sides, the front, and my fringe area separate in the way that I would normally set my hair. You can absolutely do this as a middle part, whatever is easiest for you to do, because you are going to split it down the middle in the back as well. So, but this is the easiest way for me to do it. Once you have your front section separated however you want it, you are going to split the back part in a straight line all the way down the back of your head. This may take a couple of tries, but using a rat tail comb can really help to create that nice crisp straight line. So just go straight down the back and separate it equally on each side. Once I have my sections, I'm going to take a small bit of hair from the underside, probably about 1/2 inch from both sides. You're going to try to do as equal as possible. And this is going to be our guide. This is where we're going to figure out how much we're actually going to be cutting off. And this is the guide for all other cuts that we're going to make. Using the rat tail comb to make sure that the hair is nice and flat, you're going to pull the hair right in front, so just, right underneath your chin. Pulling the hair forward and then cutting it straight across, that's actually what helps to create that U shape, that horseshoe shape in the back. Making sure that you've cut equally on both sides, that is now your guide. Now I'm going to take sections probably about 1 inch or so. You don't want to do anything too large or too thick because you want to be able to see that guide through those sections. So again, using the rat tail comb, combing it flat out, and you can see exactly where that first guide cut is. So using that as your guide, pull the hair straight forward and down and make your first cut. I don't know why I flip the hair up when I do this first cut. I don't do that on any of the other cuts, but for some reason that's just easier for me to see. But you can see as I go along, I just cut it straight down and across. And you're always going to want to, cross-check and make sure that all of the hairs were cut evenly and within that guide cut. I ended up cutting off almost 3 inches. I desperately needed a trim. Moving on to the next side, I'm taking another small section, about 1 inch or so, and of course clip away the hair. You don't want to get that intertwined with the parts that you're going to cut. And just flatten it out and pull it forward as much as possible, and then just cut exactly straight across, again using that bottom guide. After you've cut both sides for that particular section, it's good practice just to check the length to make sure that it's even on both sides. You can tell on this side, I took a little bit more than 1 inch, and it is a little bit harder to see that guide through. So I really recommend taking much smaller sections. It is going to take some time, but you really need to take your time with this and do it as simply for you as possible. It can make it difficult when your hair is very thick and you can't really see that guide. So definitely take much smaller sections than I did here. This is definitely the tedious part. You're going to just take smaller sections, going back and forth on each side and trimming it using the guide. Make sure after every time that you've done a side, you are checking that length with each other, with each of the sides. So I'm gonna speed things up here in a bit because, you know, it's just the same thing over and over again. But I wanted to make sure that you're seeing all of the cuts that I'm making. Now that our back section is done, we're going to move on to the sides. So I will start off with the smaller side, and it's essentially done the same way. You're going to take small sections. I go from the bottom up, again, clipping the hair out of the way, and using that guide from the hair that you just cut to make sure. You're going to pull it forward and cut straight across. I usually do this first. This is my first set of cuts. And then I'm going to go back and kind of taper it a little bit more, but I want to make sure that I'm getting the exact length cut correctly. So I will do this section first, cutting straight across. Now that I have that length cut off, I'm going to do a slight tapering. So I'm going to go ahead and take that side section, the same section that I would normally have for my rollers, and I'm going to bring the hair over a little bit, and I'm going to cut it at a slight angle. This helps to create that tapering and helps to reinforce that horseshoe, that U shape in the front section of the hair. I like to start with cutting a little bit off and then just keep checking it to make sure that it's going in the angle that I want it to go. So starting off small, just small cuts, and then you can just keep taking a little bit more as you go along. For this larger side, I'm going to separate out my fringe area. So just this little square right in front, clip that away. And this section is going to be cut exactly the same way as the other section. So starting from the bottom up, cutting straight across at first, and then you can go back and work on tapering it so it creates the U shape. Now for my fringe, I'm going to separate about an inch or so of the front section of my bangs, and I'm going to cut that separately. Now, if you don't have a lot of hair, if your hair's not really bulky, you can skip this step and you can just cut your fringe or this side the same way that you cut the other, that side section. This just helps me so my hair doesn't get so heavy and bulky on that side. So I'm gonna separate that small section off. I will take care of that in a minute. And this part of kind of my fringe, even though it's quite long, it's not really a true bang or fringe, but I do like to cut this and taper this much more than I would just that regular side bit. So again, I'm gonna pull it forward, I'm gonna cut the length off, and then I'll go back in and taper it at a bit of an angle to make sure that it's creating that nice U-shape swoop. Now I'm going to cut this very small section and I'm going to pull it straight forward, and I'm cutting it straight across. Because I wear my hair off to the side with a side part, if I cut it straight across like this, it will actually create the taper for me. So again, I start off small. I usually start cutting it like right under my chin, and then I'll just take sections, smaller sections, keep going up and up and up, just basically to where I feel comfortable. Sometimes I will cut it as short as up to my lip. It really just depends on how much length I've decided to take off. So you just keep taking small sections to where you're comfortable, and but it is going to be completely separate from that other side. But this will help to lessen some of that bulk on that side. Once you're done with all of the cuts, just go through and make sure that you haven't missed any hairs and that you are happy with the angle of your tapers, and just clean up anything that you want. The great thing about this haircut, especially if you are wearing vintage styles regularly, is that it's very forgiving. It doesn't have to be perfect. The curls are going to lay much nicer because of the horseshoe cut, and it really doesn't have to be a perfect straight across cut. So it's incredibly forgiving, so take your time. I know the idea of cutting your own hair could be scary, so just take small sections, do a trim, see how it feels, and you'll build your confidence very, very quickly. Now that my haircut is finished, I've washed it, and now it's time to set it. So I will be back in a moment to show you the results. And I've done my normal wet set using my foam rollers and sponge rollers, both of which are 1 inch in diameter. Well, here is the finished product. I'm very happy with it. It was a simple cut. I needed a lot off. I definitely did. It had been quite some time. But I'm really happy with it, and I hope that this video can give you a little bit of confidence in trying to cut your own hair. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to help. And if you want to set up a one-on-one session with me, I'm still doing my vintage beauty and style sessions, so you can check the link in the description and schedule something with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.